And my name is Erik Hallberg. I work at Xylem as an information architect at the documentation department, and we handle all our documents and mostly all of Xylem's translation needs. Xylem is a pretty huge company. It's a spin-off from ITT company. I think we're located in 150 countries. I have 17,000 co-workers all around the world. I think we're one of the bigger players in the water industry. I haven't said anything about that, but we're in the water business. We transport, we move, we analyze, and we clean water. That's what we do. And these are all the Xylem brands. I think there's about 40 brands in this image, and I think we have bought a few companies since then, so it's growing. So as you can see, it's a pretty industrial product company. We have a lot of mechanical products that more or less move water. I'm going to talk about these few products over here, the products that actually drive, steer, control, and monitor all the pumps. These are a few pumps on this image. We have pumps that push out a few centiliters of water per second to our larger pumps that push about between 100 and 150 cubic meters per second, which is about half this room. So they're pretty impressive and pretty huge. But we're going to talk about these products. These are the old monitoring and control products. They are pretty basic. It's LED lights that they are lit, they blink, or they are off, more or less, or pretty basic small displays. And our newer products, which have a high definition screen or are responsive and can be shown on laptops, iPads, whatever tablet you want. So I wanted to start with the most basic ones, which are ones on the top, not that tall, but you can see it for yourself, which consists of only LED lights. And our job is to tell the customer what's going on, what's happening. So there was no way of doing that on the actual product, so it all fell to the instruction manual, where we had to describe what's happening, what's the behavior of the product. And when we moved to products with a small screen, we definitely had some limitations. For starters, we had one font, which is called 7-segment. I think you know it. It's like the watches of the digital watches of the 80s. I have an example down here, which you can think about what that means, because that's more or less a parameter that means something, and it's something in English. But it's definitely a limitation, character length, and we have to abbreviate a lot. Or I actually wouldn't call it abbreviation, because a lot of it's just letters that mean something for someone. So the letters down here is actually it's a command for resetting all the parameters for the user. That's what that means. And for that specific products, I think it's 10 or 11,000 more parameters. That I mean, we can't begin to describe each and every one of them. So it's a lot of hard work to get to know this product and actually manage it on site. So there are, for this specific product, it's a huge reference file, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4 Bibles thick, to get to know each and every parameters. So we really couldn't do anything translation-wise on this product because it was just too many parameters and it didn't mean anything. Couldn't send it to a translator because they couldn't make out what does this mean. So I want to move on to the next display or the next product that have a slightly smarter display. We still have some limitation on this one. This is a bit tricky because we can't measure the number of characters because it's pixel based. So that means that we can have a lot of I's, but not a lot of W's. And that's not really something that we know beforehand what the translation will be. So we more or less, we guessed it to about 20-ish characters is a good number. And this product also had some limitations in regards to memory. We couldn't store as much memory as we wanted, so we were limited to the 256 characters. And that means isn't possible to use. And if we think about the French and Spanish languages, they have a lot of apostrophes and dots everywhere. So it was quite taxing having to keep track of all of this, replacing letters, so have it almost look like French or almost look like Spanish. But we tried. So I want to illustrate an example down here. This is well, it depends on where you live, what you call it, but in English I think we call it sump. It's the pit where all the water goes into that the pump is located in. If you live in Australia, it's called a well. So that's a tough nut to crack and get them to agree on the correct term. But anyway, that's it. The water level goes from down here to up there. The product owner wanted to have the different levels of the wastewater we call this. These are some levels that are important for the pump to function as it does. But we were limited to actually just showing them this because of the space restraints. So to begin with, the naming of the water of these levels aren't that good. I mean, high level, alarm level. It's a bit tricky, and when you try to shorten that, it's high. So, but anyway, we did that. So hopefully all the English service technicians know what that means. But then we tried to translate it. And this is what it means in French. And it's cut there because that's all the space there is. So we can't actually show anything more than that. So that was obviously a problem, even though we tried to shorten the English. English is a pretty short language. If you know, I think Spanish and French is about 120% of English. I don't know about Finnish, but it's up towards 200%. So we had to figure out a solution, or not we, the developers of this had to, and they did. They came up with a solution with scrolling, because that's an actual display image of 3 alarms happening at the same time. And you can see that they are not as different as one would like them to be. So we got them to actually add scrolling, which means that the letters would slowly, by blinking, go to the left. So that meant that we could actually show them decreased performance due to temperature limit. And this was, I think, we thought was good, because now we could use all these letters actually saying what's the issue, instead of having these abbreviated small things. And it worked pretty good, but it turned out that this display and the way that the scrolling function worked, about 5 to 10% of people actually couldn't see what was happening on the screen, because the blinking had the frequency it blinked made them not see anything. So about 5 to 10% of the people couldn't actually read anything from the display. So that was obviously a problem, but something that we let slide. Because it was only 5 to 10%. So then nowadays we moved over to high resolution displays, where this isn't quite a big issue as it was before. But on the top there we did have the nice resolution with a pretty good display. We had space constraints, of course. And when we talked to the developers about talking to the UX designers, saying that we can't have these long strings in English because they will grow, they said that, well, we don't have any UX design people. And it turned out that we don't have any at all at the entire company. So it's been a lot of work trying to figure out what the parameters should be, or the string should be, to make the products work as they should in all languages. But we still have the space limitation, because the products, even though they work well, they don't have a lot of space, a lot of kilobytes. So for the one on top example, we couldn't have translate to Chinese or any other Japanese, Korean, or any other language that required a lot of fonts. So that was a limitation there, but now that we moved to a pretty responsive design, we don't have any limitations yet that we can think of in regards to space being a huge factor. But when we have to translate, context is important. We talked about context before. And just to get a clear message across, context is important. And if you add translation to that, it can be even more difficult. I can sort of figure out what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't think I want to imagine what it is either, because it's. I think something has gone wrong. I don't know what, like something. We didn't have such a major issue with context and translation, but just to show you on the top, complete installation, which is definitely a parameters that we do use. Without having any context for the translator, we got it right in 2 out of 5. It could just as easily be in 3 out of 5, but it's just to show that it's hard, it's difficult. And when there is no context, I don't know how many of you know Swedish, but the pipe cleaning translation over here is like a pipe that you smoke. It's not pipes that you send wastewater in, so it's a bit off. And it's the same for the next line. It's the same. It's the pipe that's being cleaned every 25 pump cycle. And snoring is it's when the when we have lowered the surface so much that it's actually starting to pump air. Air gets into the system. That's not good. So it's an actual. It's not something I came up with. It's an actual term that's being used. But in Swedish, it was snoring like when you sleep, and it was the same in French. So we actually do have an agreement with our translator agency that the translators should be pretty knowledgeable about the business that we're in, and also be located in country. So I don't know if snoring by sleeping is what they thought we meant when we sent the string snoring. So I would probably have expected us to get a question, what's the context for this? What do you mean by this? But we didn't, so I would cast this as a bad translation rather than not have us having sent some context, but we can see that context do matter. And these are just long words. And so in this case, or these cases, we have one word meaning two different things in the target language. Reset, and again I have the Swedish translation. The top one is reset factory settings, and these translations are actually good, so you have to trust that it is good. And yes, as you can see by the bold text, the words differ, and it's all the same words. It's the same with open. Now I've actually written the context here. You can see that the translation do differ between what it is and what is being used as. So we have had some issues with this, that the context of the translated word is wrong, and unfortunately we don't have a good solution for that yet, except for trying to send as much reference material to the translators as possible. But a lot of times the product isn't developed enough, so we can actually take screenshots or show them what we are trying to do. So it's hard. It's very hard work being done that actually doesn't necessarily turn out to do any good, unfortunately.
How do you test it?
I'm sorry?
How do you test that it's correct? Does someone from that country read them?
We want them to. We are struggling on this. We're trying to get the product development projects to send out to our sales companies in their local sites and get someone to actually review the translations. But they have other responsibilities, but also that a lot of times they don't have the context, they don't have the know-how how to do it, and we very seldom get any review work done. When we do, we are very appreciative about that, and we try to fix what we can fix. But otherwise, we're releasing the product. This is the first version, and then the aftermarket tells us what to change and when to change it. I see that stuff didn't come in the correct order, but we're trying to come up with the Xylem experience, trying to unify the Xylem's different products. As I said before, we have about 40 different brands that we're trying to consolidate into one brand, one look, one feel, one experience. And that's hard, since there are as many developing teams around the globe, a lot of them in India and the US for now. And as I said, we're trying to unify UX design, even though we don't have a UX department or anyone actually working on UX design, but the ones who do work on the product try to talk to us as much as possible so we can unify, because we are more or less the only department that deal with a lot of different products from different brands. Yeah, you can see yourself, it's consistent use of the English language, which gives us high quality translation and also helps with context. And to get there, we have a vision that calls for a master dictionary. We have one dictionary with a lot of UI strings that any developing team can use and that we keep track of, which goes through a rigorous process of review, utilizing developers, English-speaking persons, salespeople, so we get the correct strings used at once. It's a lot of work because we have a lot of products already developed, and trying to unify them into the Xylem language is tedious, but something that we are working on. And so I think I have one slide left. And it's the new challenges with actually mixing an old product with a new product. Because an old product communicates like that with the font. I have the actual message. I thought it's a bit pasted over, but it says P1 comes loss. That's what's being displayed on the screen on this product, and that's what a technician will see once in the pit. When he looks at the product, that's the message he's getting. While the person on the SCADA system or the asset management system sitting in an office a few hundred miles away is shown this: pump one communication loss. And I think, or we think, that we have to come up with a strategy of how we're presenting the same information in two different ways, but anyway, being able to tell the end customer that it's seeing the same thing, or knowing that the same thing is happening. And I think that was it. That's our struggle at Xylem. Any questions? Yeah.
You said that there is a UI UX department in the company, and still, in spite of that, you are trying to improve the interface and user experience. Have you ever measured what is the impact of current interface on your sales? I mean, when will you understand that this is enough? That we achieved the most that we could with this amount of that?
I don't think we have a way of measuring that. Our department consists of technical writers who usually just write the instruction manual. So we don't have any prior knowledge of UI or UX design. So we just do a gut feeling thing where we see that, okay, this text won't work. This isn't context enough for the user to understand what is this. Does this information over here belongs to this title, or is it? How do the user know? And it's a gut feeling at present.
It's interesting topic in a sense that I think your product can be, mistreating your product or misusing your product can be come with quite severe consequences for the operators. And having the proper and meaningful descriptions delivered to users can make a big difference.
Absolutely, and it's very obvious inside the organization that we are a company that is built off of mechanical products. We're just now starting to inquire technical companies that help us with this, that have products like this. So we're moving towards something, but it's slow and tedious because the organization is so vast. So we don't have any. The people who's deciding isn't really the ones who's they know how to make a huge chunk of iron move water the best way possible, not necessarily what's needed for the customer to feel safe and so on in the software. Thank you. Yes?
Do you get any feedback from the users?
We get some feedback, not necessarily our department or the developing department, but aftermarket does. We wish that we had some more investigative work being done on the product once it's launched, but it's not being done. I don't have a good answer why. I think a lot of people want to do it, but it's hard to, because we don't have a specific focus group for that. But it's something that's needed, actually should be done during the development phase, but we don't do it, unfortunately.
Let's talk.
Is there anyone else? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, maybe I missed it during the presentation, but how many different languages do you translate into?
It's, I think for manuals, for manuals, actually paper documents, about 45 languages, and about 16, not for all products, but for, I think, 16 different for software at the moment.
I used to work for Apple, and I was part of the team that was responsible for Europe, Africa, and part of Asia.
Yeah.
And we had similar things. I mean, our products is maybe a bit more user intuitive, and not so specific, but yeah, we had similar processes where we would have translator do something, then we would have editors reviewing what the translators have done.
Yeah.
There were in-house Apple people, but I don't know if that's, I remember still people coming over to me as a Swedish person living in London and be like, can you read the Swedish copy and just double check that there's nothing crazy? So sometimes you gotta work with what you have, like finding those people internally.
Yeah, but that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But then there's, it's good as long, but then you can meet people that I don't necessarily like how it's translated. I wanted to use a different word, even though the translation isn't wrong, but it's my personal opinion that it should actually be this instead, which actually can mess it up very much. So then once we have actually gotten a review back, we have to send it back to the translator to make sure that we're not actually changing the translation because someone has a need of personalizing the translation.
What we used to do is every translation had to be given a back translation, like the one we and then our creative directors would approve the back translation even if they couldn't speak the language.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I used to work with silver product water pump and water person. Because we had is sort of similar like you showed every time, and they were struggling with any Chinese and the Chinese characters, wider, bigger, and then it shows less information there.
Yeah.
You showed that you actually added this higher resolution solutions there. Which means you have a bigger screen or the same screen that shows a lot more information.
Yeah.
It's the same size. Or
No, the slides I showed you. Maybe I can go back. Was the one on top there, which the screen wasn't the issue there because the screen could actually show Chinese, Korean, Japanese characters, but then we have the space constraint because we couldn't copy as many fonts over to the software because we were out of memory. So that was the issue there. We actually had the physical capability to do it, but we didn't have the space to being able to have. Well, then we could have Chinese, for example, but only Chinese and not French, German, and that would mean a lot of work on the logistics side of it. But yeah, that would have been doable. But I think in this case, we moved on to another screen, another solution for that.
Yeah, this is more desirable for sure.
So, yeah.
Would they ever let you use a tablet or a mobile to augment this in some way?
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, if you just displayed a QR code
Mm-hmm.
and I read it from my phone, knowing my language,
Yeah.
it would give me the text automatically for that context. So you could use readily available tablet or whatever to,
Yeah.
then you don't have this space problem.
Yeah.
Unless it's a hazardous, tough environment where it has to be waterproof, etc.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. A lot of these, where our products are located, where the actual product is located, is a few meters underground,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of concrete walls, and the reception isn't. I mean, we still use phone modems to communicate with our products, but that's being done for some products, but not the only ones.
I mean, things like audio as well in some cases. Is that possible?
I don't know if we have tried audio, but I know that augmented reality has been tried and done in some cases, but since the environments are as tough as they are, we usually don't use it.
Okay, we're running a bit behind. Maybe save your questions for later. Let's go to our final.